Hey everybody, happy 4th of July. Hope everyone's having a great Independence Day. So I'm actually doing my video from Alabama, which is crazy because I've only been here probably through this area once in my whole life, and that was back in the 90s. But just a couple weeks ago, all this happened really fast, but God is just so amazing, and He has blessed me, and He has given me the honor to be a chaplain on the Billy Graham Rapid Response Team. And I am on the way to Louisiana to serve the people there that was hit by a tropical storm a couple weeks ago. So I'm at my hotel room, and I was just reflecting about, on the drive here, going through North Carolina and South Carolina, Georgia, going through Alabama, seeing all the flags on the side of the interstate. And I stopped a couple places along the way, and everybody's in there red, white, and blue, and just, how blessed we are as a country, and I hope we never take that for granted. And I'm just going through the states, and my great uncle, I had a conversation with him just a few days ago. He served in Desert Storm in Kuwait, and he shared some of the pictures with me that he took over there. And he reminded me that the territories over there, there's checkpoints, and so you don't just go from place to place. There's checkpoints between every border of every territory, and there's guards there checking your ID and asking you where you're going and what you're doing and checking your car. And then I'm reminded how blessed we are here. I'm going from state to state, and the only thing that's different is a sign that says "Welcome to South Carolina," "Welcome to Georgia," "Welcome to Alabama." So I just hope I just pray that we do not take that for granted. And another thing was on my mind is that, are we being good citizens? What can we do to be better citizens of our country? So I'm going to have a conversation with the Holy Spirit about that and see what He puts in my mind, because we can always improve in that area. We need to be model citizens. The Bible teaches that everything we do we're doing it for God. So we should be a near perfect citizen as a Christian. And another thing was being a good steward of the resources that God has entrusted with us or to us. I see so much waste in our society, working at the ministry and just different things like that. I just pray that as Christians, we are good resources of what God gives us, and we don't take that for granted as well. But I wanted to share a quick story with you. So, as you know, I don't believe in coincidences with God. And at this point of my walk with God, I feel like everybody that He puts in my face or whatever in my view is ordained. Particularly when I'm going to go eat somewhere or anything like that, I'm constantly in conversation with God and asking Him, hey, what about this? And even the places I eat, and I know that sounds crazy, but that's just where God has me now. So my trip, I planned it out, and I did, help God helped me plan it out, and I was going to stop at certain places. Well, I stopped at Cracker Barrel on this side of Atlanta, which that was an unplanned stop, which was really a surprise. But after talking with God, that was where I was going to stop, was Cracker Barrel. So when my waitress came out, I knew she was my person. For no doubt, she was my person. I was already prepared for her. I had a track in my pocketbook. I had her tip money, which God has really leads me to kind of give a generous tip, what I think is a generous tip. So, and then also had a little Jesus for her. So I was playing for whoever my waitress was going to be. I knew that I was there for them. But she brought my food, and then shortly after, she brought my check, and I never saw her no more. I said, "Oh no, I didn't get a refill on my tea. I needed a to-go box. I needed a to-go cup," and she was nowhere to be seen. So I had to grab one of the other waitresses. So they were not very attentive. She was my waitress, and then I was kind of abandoned. So I figured she probably got off. So I was really bummed about it, though, because I felt she was my God person at the restaurant, today. And so I just said, well, I was praying about what to do, because God said, well, leave a little bit less than what you normally leave, because they really didn't do anything. But I couldn't just leave a track on the table and no money. That's just so tacky and so insulting. I learned that from my son who works at a local restaurant. So I left the money and a track and a little Jesus for whoever cleaned my table. And I went on out the door, and there's a little gas station right beside the Cracker Barrel where I stopped. And the one pump I pulled in, and guess who is right beside me in the pump, like right adjacent, where our pumps share and we're just on opposite side? The waitress from the Cracker Barrel. And I said, hey there. So I went ahead. I saw her when I pulled up, so I got her money and her track and her little Jesus. I had another one. And I went over there. I said, hey, did you get off early? I didn't ever see you anymore. She said, oh, I'm so sorry. I hated to leave, but I've been there all day. I said, well, did you get your tip money? She said, no, I didn't. I said, well, here, this is for you. I said, there's no coincidence that, God put me here so I could see you. And so I just thought that was such a cool God moment, because I knew she was my person. And for me to pick the pump and to be there at exact time she was, and the exact pump that she was not a coincidence. So I was able to give her what God had ordained and wanted her to have to begin with. So anyway, I hope y'all have a great 4th. And I will continue my trip tomorrow. And anyway, I just pray that you will ponder on what I spoke about, what I felt like the Holy Spirit was leading me to say. Is just for us praying and see how we can be good citizens and good stewards of the resources that God has given us. Bye for now.